Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Sabbath services. We'll talk about some prophecy today, but let's understand a very important thing. Let's come to Ecclesiastes, the first chapter. Because things are happening right now that have happened in the past. Verse 9, chapter 1. That which has been is that which shall be, and that which has been done is that which shall be done. There is nothing new under the sun. And what's happening in the world is nothing new under the sun. Now we all know, everybody know what Revelation 12:9 says. It says, in that ancient serpent called the devil and Satan is what? Deceiving what? The whole world. Okay. Now let's come to Isaiah 25. Let's see how thorough that is going to be. And what it is that he is doing is something that has already been done. And people have not learned the lesson of history. Okay, Isaiah 25. Verse 7. Isaiah 25. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering that covers all people. Now, what is that? That is the spiritual blindness that comes from not obeying God. See? All of the knowledge in the world is shrouded in lies with a mixture of truth scattered in. But it's going to be so amazing, it's going to be like a covering. Okay? Which covers some of the people. Well, it says all people. And the veil that is woven over all nations. That's the first thing he's going to have to get rid of. And that's the first thing we're going to have to deal with. But in the meantime, we see it developing here. Now let's come back to Genesis 11. Genesis 11. And we see this happening too. Okay? Genesis 11. Now this was hundreds of years after Noah and everybody got out of the ark and all the animals and so forth. And they were reinstituting the way of Cain on this side of the flood. Okay. So let's pick it up here in verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and one speech. Now today, we're just about there with English, right? Okay. But we are there with computers, technology. And it came to pass as they were migrating toward the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had bricks for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. Of course, this is in what is called the nation of Iraq today. So there was tar oozing out of the ground. And when you read the book of Daniel, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were cast into the fire, they probably had an apparatus to use the natural gas which was coming out from underground and had a big flame there. Okay? And they said this, come, let us build a city and a tower with its top reaching into the heavens, and let us establish a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered upon the face of the whole earth, because they knew that God was going to put them out in the areas that he was going to designate for them. And they didn't want to go. So this was rebellion. And they were trying to redo what they had on the other side of the flood. Now, we're not told how highly sophisticated they were. However, when they lived so long, they probably were more sophisticated than we have any idea. Look what has happened in the last 150 years. See? Think if that stretched out to 700, 800, 900 years. And everybody has this accumulative knowledge. Okay? The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men had built. And the Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Now you see all the scientists talk about, well, we're developing this, and we're developing that, and we're developing the other thing. See? And what's one of the key things that they want to do? What's one of the key things that they want to do? Extend human life. Okay, so how are they going about it? Well, with computers and with embedded chips and with everything they can use to extend life. This is only the beginning of what they will do. Now think about that. Nothing which they have imagined to do will be restrained from them. So in order for that system that was set up before the flood to defer it being set up all at once after the flood, then God decided to change the languages. Now, can you imagine the first day that all the languages were changed? Okay? Just to give you a comparison. You know English, but how about the person you were working with yesterday who spoke English now just speaks Mandarin Chinese? Okay. And you couldn't understand something. And you went over to this next person, you started talking with them, and they were speaking Russian. Okay. You went over to this next person, and they were speaking some language below the sub-Sahara. Okay. And you went over to someone else, and they were speaking Eskimo language. How are you going to do anything? See? So that's what God did. Now, today, it would be like doing this, scrambling every single computer on the face of the earth to where they couldn't communicate with each other. Now, God could do that just like that, okay? But notice that. Now, nothing which they have imagined to do will be restrained from them. So come, let us go down and there confound their language so that they cannot understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from that place upon the face of all the earth, and they quit building the city. Now, this is why when you read the book, The Two Babylons, if you don't have The Two Babylons, we can send it to you. But be prepared to read. This is one thing I want to emphasize. You must read. Very important. Because there's so much more information and you don't necessarily get it all on your smartphone. Okay? And with a regular book, you can mark it. Okay? Now, that's why all the gods, Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, the three, father, mother, son, is in almost every religion of the earth with a different name. And what do they all have in common? Every single one of them. All these religions. They all have a serpent or a dragon. Now, we're going to see with some things we're going to cover today. It's the same today. Okay? Now, first of all, I want to talk about the cancel culture. You hear a lot of that. What is cancel culture? It's trying to get rid of God. That's the ultimate goal in it. Okay? And to change the way people think, and to change the entire sexual orientation of millions of people. Now, they have enough out there now, and they have enough power, and they have those who are in power in all the states of the United States, and in Washington, D.C., the pall of evil is hanging over America because when they all had the good times with Trump, they didn't return to God. They went back to their pleasures, their own religion, and then when God has taken it away, which he has, because what happened with this election could not have happened unless God made it happen through Satan the devil because of our sins. See? How much longer does it take for the so-called Christian world to repent, beginning with all the ministers? Now, you've heard me say this how many times? How many, many, many times? See? But they are stubborn. They are antichrist. They are against God. And they don't know how to really conduct themselves and use the Word of God to help the people. So, we have atheism, witchcraft, other religions, and you're going to see something about other religions. But I wanted first of all talk about sexual orientation. Someone sent me this book, which is for the second grade, called Gay BCs. All right? Let me read you the alphabet, not all of it, but what they are teaching little kids. And so here's a picture of it. I've got all the letters that I want to cover marked off with the yellow tabs. Okay? Now combine this with what we'll cover later. I'll just do it now. In California, of course they can't have the Bible in school. They can't talk about God in school. And it's against the law to have religion taught in school, right? No, it's not. If it's not Christian. If it's not the Bible. They have a program to bring the ancient gods of the Peruvians and Aztecs into the classroom of children in grade school to chant the chantings of the God that kills children and people, the God of human sacrifice. Okay? Now then, before it reaches that point, you must further corrupt their minds and must further corrupt the society. Remember where we read, that which has been is that which shall be. And what is in this book is what was in Sodom and Gomorrah and the other two cities that were destroyed in Genesis 19. Okay, we'll start with B. B is for bi, B-I. You can shout it out loud. I like boys and girls, and that makes me proud. C, coming out. You're ready to share what you feel deep inside. It's okay to be scared. D is for drag. You can strut and dance in the clothes that you love, dresses, heels, and pants. In other words, boys wearing girls' clothing. G, guess what G is for? G. What is G for? Gay. Second grade is a word that implies you're a girl who likes girl or a boy who likes guys. Okay? I. Guess what I is for? Second grade is for intersex. I don't know who sent me this book, but whoever sent it, thank you. L, guess what L is for? Remember, second grade. What is L for? Lesbian. Okay. Now, I tell all you parents out there, whatever it costs you, take your kids out of public school. Period. Teach them at home. There are enough websites they can go from sandbox to PhD without ever leaving the home. Okay, N. N is for non-binary. You don't identify just as being a girl or just as being a guy. Okay? Think what this is doing to the young, innocent minds. P is for pan. Pan is what? Yes. You connect with a vibe, no matter the gender, it's all about what's inside. Okay. Q is for what? Queer. This is what they're teaching. T is for what? Trans. It's a brave step to take to live as the gender you know is innate. And furthermore, if you're a girl, the school will take you down to Planned Parenthood and they will give you the chemicals to change your sex. And once that is done, it destroys your whole life. Okay? X is for, you can't write it down when you don't prefer to use M or F, that is male and female. The book, ABCs for second graders, corralled in the public schools to have their minds twisted and perverted so that the homosexual community can have young flesh coming into the community because they don't reproduce. Okay? Now you wonder why God is angry at this nation? He says, if you want sin, I'm going to give you sin all you want. And if you don't love me freely, and if you don't keep my commandments, I am going to put you under the thumb of tyrants. And I'm going to take away everything from you because you never came to me. You say on your money, in God we trust. But God says, that's not me. That's Satan, the devil. Here's a report. You want to know why it's so dark in Washington, D.C.? Because there's so many evil people in charge, and a good number of them, it's reported, that they use witchcraft. Okay, here's the one here. Revenge of the Gods. Next week, the California Department of Education will vote on a new statewide ethnic study curriculum that advocates for the decolonization of America and elevates Aztec religious symbols, all in the service of a left-wing political ideology. See what happens when you have one party in control and it's not God? Who fills in the vacuum? Satan, the devil. And you can't get them out because there are too many people in the society that believe like they do. See? You think you could go into San Francisco and start preaching and get a mass repentance of the homosexuals? No way. You would be arrested as soon as someone could report you. Right? The new program called Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, now that sounds nice, doesn't it? Seeks to extend the left's cultural domination of California's public university system. 50 years in the making. The state's entire primary and secondary education system, which consists of 10,000 public schools totaling nearly 6 million students, to chant prayers to the god of the Aztecs. And they were the ones who had human sacrifice. Okay, here's another one. What are scientists trying to do? Now, you've heard about the vaccine against the China virus. It's made of NRAN, okay? And that is introducing into the systems of people NRA, which may change their genetic makeup if the body does not attack and destroy them. Okay. You can read it. Medical kidnap. Moderna's top scientist on mRNA technology in COVID shots says we are actually hacking the software of life. Think what they are going to do. See? And remember, once it starts, it never stops. Right? Let's come back to Revelation. And remember, everything is being set up for the return of Christ. Revelation, the 6th chapter. Now, you've heard me say that with the seals, we're going to talk about the 6 seals. I don't know when the first seal was opened, but where's my bell? But I gave a few, how shall we say, thoughts on it, which may have been correct, but I don't know. That's why I rang the bell and rang it here. Because here's what's happening. Remember, when did the ecumenical movement start? When did the Catholic Church openly say, we want to have ecumenism with the rest of the Christian world? That was just a start. Because the goal is to have ecumenism with all religions. So, where was the Pope last week? Okay. So who started it? Goes all the way back to Pope John the 23rd. Okay. Then we had after that, we had a couple of other popes, and then we had Pope John Paul, and then we had Benedict, and he had to retire. He's still a pope, sitting up there somewhere in vacation land. And then we have Francis I. Now then, Pope Paul II went all around and was bringing all of the Catholics back together. And he is the one who helped break down the wall with the Soviets and open up the rest of Europe. Okay. Now we'll talk about Europe in a minute. Okay. This is about Pope Francis on the trip. Okay. What he did to go there was necessary to create a one world inter-religious system. Okay? Now, let's read Revelation 6. I think we can safely say that the development of this one world religion, the first seal has got to have been opened because it's happening wave after wave now. Verse 1, Revelation 6. And I looked when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say, like the sound of thunder, come and see. And I looked, and behold, there was a white horse, and the one who was sitting on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Now, how are you going to have a bow with no arrows? See? So this shows this is not a conquest like a war, but this is a pulling together of the religions. Did Pope Francis conquer, as it were, Iraq? Yes. Yes, he did. Let's see what he said. Pope Francis said on Monday that he decided to visit Iraq despite a rise in the COVID-19 cases. After much prayer and contemplation, now who's he praying to? Who's he praying to? Okay. Remember Balaam? Okay. He was the high priest of Pethor on the Euphrates River. Now he was in contact with God on this occasion, seeking permission to come and curse the children of Israel. Okay. Now to show you how much the will of God is going to be done, in spite of who's trying to do what, is this. Balaam was hired by Balak, given lots of money. And God originally told him, don't go. But he said, oh, look at all that money. I want all that money. I really need to go. And besides, Balak's minister came back to me and said, I'll give you more money. Come and curse the children of Israel. So God said, you can go, but you can't do anything other than what I tell you. Okay. Now think about that. A dedicated worshiper of Satan wants to come and curse the children of Israel. But for himself, he wants the money. Balak wants the children of Israel cursed so he can defeat them in a war. Okay? So, Balaam goes. God gave him one final warning. Remember what that one final warning was? His donkey rebelled. Threw him off and drove him into a wall, and he started beating his donkey, and the donkey said, well, what are you beating me for? You know, donkey talking in a man's voice, probably an angel, okay? So, he was told to go, but you can't say anything that I do not tell you to say. So what did he do? He got there to Balak. Balak brought him up to a mountain and said, now here's where I want you to curse the children of Israel. So he went up on this mountain, offered some offerings, made it all look really good. And he stood up and blessed Israel. And he did this repeatedly. And on one of the sessions, he even prophesied of the Messiah. So you think of that. The will of God is always going to be done, right? So Balak was first and said, well, I told you to curse. Well, I told you that God told me I couldn't say anything that he didn't want me to say. Let's go over to this mountain and try it again. Same thing happened. So Balak was really beside himself. He gave him so much wealth and everything that he didn't know what to do. And yet he was blessing, blessing, blessing. Okay. Now that tells you something else for today, right? Right? If the people of America would turn to God, there would be blessings instead of cursing, but they don't want to do it God's way. Right? So this is the will of God. Let's see what he said here. Pope Francis called Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistan a sage, and that he was a man of God. That's just what the Muslims want to hear. You recognize this as a godly religion. No, Satan recognizes his own. See? So remember where we started? The pall of the covering of deception that's over all the world. Look at it. I wonder where he's going to go next. And that all by itself should tell you everything you need to know about the Roman Pope and his plans to launch the one world religion of Chrislam on this world. Okay? There you go. All right. So let's read it. Read verse 2 again. And I looked, and behold, there was a white horse, and the one who was sitting on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Okay? Didn't fire an arrow because he didn't need to. Today with weapons, we'd say he didn't shoot a shot, right? Okay? Same thing. All right? Now, let's come for one more, and then we'll tie some of this together. One more. Germany is developing a system that they're going to put in their computer system. Okay? Let's back up a little bit. Okay. We know, okay, come over here to Revelation 13. We know that Hitler was one of the kings of the North, and he was the seventh with the eighth one to come. Revelation 17. Okay? Now then, have you ever watched on the American History Channel all about World War II? They play those things over and over and over and over again. Did you ever see what happened to the whole thing with Hitler? Was this. He got blinded by God that he could not make a right decision, lifted up in all of his vanity. They were developing the Wunderwaffen, the rockets, the atomic bombs, all of that sort of thing. And he held in Austria a meeting with all the top generals after the Russians were coming from the east and the Allied forces were coming from the west and from the south. And he convinced them that with the Wunderwaffens, they would have jet planes, they would have atomic bombs, they would have the rockets to send, those to go across the ocean and bomb New York City, and they would win in the final analysis. So they were all deceived by that to continue fighting. And at the same time, the Allies with Russia decided that they were going to conquer Germany to where there was nothing left. And you look at what they did to bomb and bomb and bomb and destroy and kill. And look what happened when the Russians came in to Berlin to kill everything and everyone. And Hitler committed suicide. Okay? That has to be the deadly wound of the system, which now Germany once again is what? The largest, strongest nation in Europe. And they're developing a system which will develop into the mark of the beast. Okay? So it is this. Everything about everyone in Germany, everything that they do, everything, because see, they have a record on everybody. If you buy everything on your phone or if you're on the line all the time, they know who you are, where you are, and if you have your smartphone, they know where you go, how long you've been there. They know everything about you. And all they're setting that up to record that for every single person in Germany. That's the start of the mark of the beast. And wait and see how convenient. Remember, Satan gives you convenience, remember? He doesn't want you to work hard. He'll give you convenience. You can buy, you can sell, you can open doors. Okay? Without it, you can't buy, sell. How are you going to eat? What are you going to do? See? So this will develop into the complete totalitarian system that's going to control the whole world. Okay? Now we need to talk about China a little later, which we will do. But in Europe, and what's going to happen? The United States will leave Europe on two conditions. One will be if there's enough time and if Donald Trump gets elected, he'll bring the troops home. Number two, if there is not enough time and there's a collapse of the dollar, we can no longer support the troops overseas and they will come home. One of the two They're coming home. And guess who's going to fill the vacuum? Jawohl, Deutschland, über alles. Let's take a break.